Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DenziBlitz here on the ECS Network. I'm your host, Mike from Electric City Sentai DenziCaster, and this week we are on part 5 of our look at Uchuu Keiji Gavan here on the DenziBlitz, part 5 of 8. Today we are looking at episodes. As I look at my notes here, episodes 25 through 29. We're more than halfway through the series. We've got 20 episodes to go. We are going to knock 5 of those out here today. So the 5 episodes that we are chatting about today are The Suspicious Flickering Underwater Flower, that's episode 25. 26, I Saw the Doll. Episode 27, The Teachers Are Weird. Episode 28, The Dark Sea of Space. And episode 29, Blitzkrieg Magic Battle. Now, obviously I'm not giving the full-on, drawn-out titles of these episodes because, well, as I've said before, it's the 80s and Toku titles got long. So, general thoughts on this batch of 5. For the first time since I've started watching this show, I had to, at points, remind myself that I really like Gavan. And I say that because some of these episodes were a little hard to watch in the context of what the show is. Gavan is, 80s superhero tokusatsu at its best. So there's lots of disjointed stuff. There's lots of cat drugs moments. There's lots of things to the show that just sit there and make you go, yep, that was weird. But up to this point, nothing that has been just completely out of the ordinary, nothing that has taken me aback until some of these. That's not to say there's nothing good in these 5 episodes. In fact, 2 of the episodes I would consider to be essential. Not because of any meta plot, not because of any overarching story, because frankly there is none in this batch of 5 episodes as far as directly impacting the plot, as far as I can tell. But there's some stuff in this batch that's worth sitting there and watching just because it's really, really good. So, let's chat. Let's go through these one by one. We're going to go through some episode synopses, and then we'll get into some thoughts. The Suspiciously Flickering Underwater Flower is episode 25, where a mysterious perfume is turning girls throughout the city into monsters. More or less, the moment that drags Gavan into it is that Wakaba, one of our 2 poster children for the show. There's Wakaba, who is the older sister of Yoichi. Wakaba gets taken in by this strange perfume, this strange flower as well, and so Gavan gets drawn into the mystery in earnest that way. Episode 26, I Saw the Doll, involves a terrorist organization called Dreambird, which has been attacking seemingly random villages throughout Japan. It is thought by Gavan that a young college student might have fallen in with this group and may be able to lead him to Dreambird so that he can stop this group in its tracks. But there could be a price to be paid in the whole deal. Episode 27, The Teachers Are Weird, involves Yoichi and Wakaba, mostly Yoichi, uncovering this sinister plot at his school through the theft or bunny napping of 2 rabbits that are kept at the school, but because they're just 2 students and there's no hard evidence, no one believes them. So Gavan goes to the school and investigates anyway, finds out that the Maku have got this sinister plot built up, and the question is, can Gavan stop them before the kids get in trouble? The Dark Sea of Space is episode 28. In this, a female assassin named Monica has been sent to kill Gavan on his birthday. But Mimi has gotten caught in the crossfire and has been poisoned as a result. So it's up to Gavan to figure out how to cure her of the poison before sunset, lest Mimi never rise again. Sorry, that was the wrong show. Lest Mimi bite the big one. She doesn't have a color timer. She just has that jewel thing that helps her do her transformation into a bird. And then there's Blitzkrieg Magic Battle, where it basically is a magician's duel. We start with this talented young magician who is challenged to a duel to perform this trick called the Human Warp, but if she cannot, then she has to renounce her right to be a magician forever. The thing is that her assistants start dying, or at least one of them does, after she agrees to the challenge. So it's all part of a plot to take over Japan through magic by the Maku. And Gavan, of course, will somehow get involved. So that's the gist of the 5 episodes. Like I said, if you're looking for more of the overarching plot of the series, look elsewhere, because you're not going to find it in these 5 episodes. In a manner of speaking, I'm starting to get vibes of when I watched Taiyo Sentai Sun Vulcan, which was actually the year before Gavan came out. It's the 1981 installment in the Super Sentai series, where you really didn't get to you got a little bit of setting and setup, and you got some story important stuff early on in the series, and then you really didn't hit the actual story plot of the show until like the last, I don't know, 10 or less episodes. Might have been 6. Basically the home stretch of the series. I'm starting to kind of get that vibe out of Gavan. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just what the show was at the time. That's tokusatsu in the early 80s, late 70s. So a few things here. Just going through my thoughts on each individual episode. The suspicious flickering underwater flower revolves mainly around a ballet club and a swim club. So it feels like it was an excuse to do some For the Dads filming. Not quite, be perfectly honest, but that was the setup I felt as we were going in to this episode with some of the setup and such. There is a wee bit of continuity in that the whole thing seems to be set up around women and getting them conditioned to be brides for the beast monsters in order to breed a smarter monster in the long run, somewhere between monster strength and human intelligence. And Don Hara, the major domo of the Maku Space Mafia, says, we've tried this whole bridal thing once before and it blew up in our face. So there is a wee bit of continuity in the episode. So that I appreciate. It's always fun to watch little kids become evil in these shows and watch them, lose the plot, so to speak. So that was amusing to see Wakaba, our young lead female child of the show, kind of go rogue briefly and be possessed. Because you always get the sense they're having a lot of fun doing those. But all in all, fun episode. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing huge new, so to speak, in this one. If you're watching and you're trying to put together an essentials list, you can probably pass on that one. 26, I Saw the Doll. I'm going to give them a lot of credit for this episode. The episode revolves around essentially, and they could have done a lot more with this story, to be perfectly honest. I think this is a missed opportunity on a whole. And I would actually love to see with Gavan being back in motion picture form, I would love to see them actually tackle this at some point. In this, the whole gist of it is a man who's been conditioned to be part of a terrorist group that is launching poison gas attacks on random Japanese villages, or at least seemingly random. For the first time in this show, as far as we can tell, because there's nothing to indicate otherwise, Dreambird has an affiliation with the Maku, but it doesn't feel like the Maku actually run the organization, or have anything beyond just a working relationship. For the first time in this show, Gavan is fighting a human foe. And he's facing a real-world issue, not a science fiction superhero issue. So it was really, really interesting to see Gavan in that type of space, if only for 20 minutes. And it plays with the idea and addresses it throughout the episode, sort of the idea of mental conditioning and someone trying to fight that conditioning to be better than what they've been trained to be. In this case, trained in a negative sense. Conditioned to be might be a better phrase. And it shows just the price, so to speak, that can be paid for something like this. That at the end of the day, nobody wins. There's not, when you're looking at something like this, there's no way to come out of this good and clean on the other side kind of deal. Which I thought was a really, because it's essentially a war episode, as much as being a terror episode. And they play it more like a war story, I think, than a terrorist deal, because you're never given any motivation, any rationale, just beyond, same thing we do every night, Pinky, try to take over the world. But it goes to show you that shows like this can actually have sort of a deeper story at different times. There's a part of me that really wishes Dreambird got a few episodes, and almost as if it was a break from the Maku. They could have very easily done a 3 or 4 episode string addressing Dreambird as a separate organization. And like I said, I'd actually love to see them come back to it maybe in one of the movies. So like I said, I would consider this essential just for what they tried to do. More than anything else. And you see the Maku get involved heavily at the end, as they do, because the Maku are the overall bad guys of the entire show. But for much of this episode, it is Space Sheriff Gavan having to address a human bad guy in a human world with human problems. So I actually really dug that. The teachers are weird. So is this episode. It's episode 27 of the series. Didn't care for it. To be perfectly honest, I didn't care for it. It felt like they were trying to scare some small children with this episode. And I imagine there was more than one kid that when they went to school the following day, after seeing this episode, they probably cast a few sideways glances at a few of their teachers. The thing that struck me most odd about this episode, if you will, is it almost felt like Gavan was a cameo character. In a approximate runtime, including credits for one of these shows, is about 24 minutes. Gavan shows up 12 minutes into his own show. He doesn't show up until halfway through, and even when he does, it's a cameo. They see him on the side of the road where apparently his Jeep broke down. So the only reason I said it is because you see him, it's on the side of the road, he's got the hood popped open, he's got a fussing under the hood and with the motor, and he's got a screwdriver in his teeth. And Wakaba makes the mention again, our young female protagonist. He asks where she's off to, and she says that her younger brother Yoichi hasn't come home from school yet, and she's looking for him. And that's it. That's the gist of the episode. set up for Gavan to get involved. And he does get involved later in the episode, obviously, but the episode is largely carried by the two kids. Some people really hate when Toku does that. Other people enjoy it and think it's a cool little side piece of business. And I'd probably fall more into the latter if the kid actors are good. And in this show, they're better than most. So, but as far as the theme of the episode, it's basically the Maku trying to take over a school and educate young children to be full of hate and war and aggressive and disobedient and militant and so on. Because now apparently the whole thing is less try and take over the world, and the plot seems to be becoming more and more for the Maku of just plunge Earth into World War III. Because plunging the world into war is a recurring a recurring motivation for the Maku in this batch of episodes. Number 28, The Dark Sea of Space, The Wandering Space Witch Monica. Put this one on your list for essential, folks, because this episode is actually really, really good. It's a little more of Gavan and Mimi, seeing the two of them together more, which is never a bad thing because they actually have a really good dynamic together. And it focuses a little on their relationship by proxy. It focuses on a relationship between them through a character named Monica, who is a space witch, given the flower of life to restore her youth. She is this renowned assassin throughout space. She does not work for any one group, but she's hired by the Maku to kill Gavan, and her youth is restored through the flower of life. Which she carries a second one with her because it's sort of a one-shot deal. Once you use the nectar of the flower dies. She goes after Gavan, fires a poison dart at Mimi as a means to draw Gavan into a trap. Mimi is poisoned. She is dying. The only way to heal her is through the flower of life. The only flower of life convenient is the one that Monica has. Eventually, Monica herself gets poisoned. We see her in battle with Gavan, and we think that she kills him at one point. Certainly the Maku do. And then Hunter Killer attacks and shoots Monica with a poison dart so that she too will die, and strips her of the flower of life so she can't heal herself. Her motivation... she had fallen in love with a space sheriff. She hates space sheriffs with a passion. That seems to be one of the reasons she takes the job. But she has been, she loved a space sheriff. That space sheriff, when she was taken hostage by an enemy, in her words, would have sacrificed me to bring this villain to justice. Justice meant more to him than love. And through Gavan's actions, where he is doing anything he can to get the flower to save Mimi, he is a space sheriff saving a woman, not necessarily the woman he loves, because we haven't got there yet in the plot, but you can kind of read the writing on the wall. Through his actions and him being willing to put his life on the line to save this woman, Monica sort of changes her evil ways, helps get the flower of life, explains what it is, the MacGuffin, to Gavan, and sends him on his way with the flower after essentially sacrificing herself to buy time for Gavan to get the flower, and basically dyes the hands of the Maku before Gavan does what Gavan does, and Joe Chaku and all that jazz. And then last but not least, but it's a touching episode with a really engaging character that I really, really kind of wished they had kept around in the long run, because she's actually a really cool character. It's a thing about these shows is, sort of the one and done character that you really latch onto in an episode. She could have something to do with Voicer, maybe. We don't really know. We just know that she fell in love with a space sheriff that they neglected to name. And so it would be interesting if she did. But she's a really interesting character. It's an episode well worth watching. And you don't get a whole lot of the bad guy redeemed episodes in this show so far. So that sort of stands out. Blitzkrieg Magic Battle, episode 29. Through these episodes, what we're winding up with, and it really kind of starts with I Saw the Doll, we're winding up with some very human bad guys throughout, where we never really see the monster form first. We'll get to it eventually, but it's mostly the human as a bad guy. And you're kind of left wondering, is it a human or is it not a human? We don't know. But for this episode, the magic concept, the magic trick as a duel, seems interesting. The trick they use, the human warp, which is to basically have two booths on either side of a brick wall, and you have to go from booth A to booth B, seemingly teleporting someone through the wall. They put an awful lot of mystique on a trick that involves two trapdoors and a trampoline by the end of the episode, to be honest. The trick itself was a letdown. But the episode itself is pretty much on par for what you expect out of Space Sheriff Gavan. Although there is one thing in this episode that was just completely out of thin air that made me a little upset. So, overall thoughts on the episodes. I Saw the Doll and the Dark Sea of Space. So episodes, just to give you the numbers, 26 and 28. Put those on your essentials list. They have potentially nothing to do with the meta plot. They're just really, really good episodes that show you what this series can do. Visually, the show is continuing to be up to par. You see continual improvements in this batch of episodes. Some of those improvements, though, feel very weird because one of the improvements you see is they for the first time have a practical effect for the laser blade, where it is essentially a light tube with a handle on it. And we see that for some of the fights in Maku Space. It looks very different than the rotoscoped animated version of the laser blade that they used for the rest of the shots. And the physical prop, because of what it is, looks very different. So if you are someone who pays attention to that sort of thing like me, it runs the very real potential of bouncing you out of certain scenes, because I mean, it's not even the same color. But it keeps them from having to animate things, and so I can see where as a cost move, it works. We see more of the Gavan eyes lighting up in the helmet during a shot where it's not animated. Again, it's a practical effect. That is very, very well done. We get a little more of the Make My Monster Grow stuff in these couple episodes. For 2 out of the 5, I'm not a big fan of that in this show, to be honest. The thing that threw me for the biggest loop, it was in Blitzkrieg Magic Battle, where we get introduced to a totally new vehicle for no good reason whatsoever, other than I assume it was a toy. It's called the Gavion. It's basically a tank. I was annoyed, to be perfectly honest, by this, and the reason I can accept early in the series when he starts calling on his arsenal. And the arsenal's never been explained to us. So the Starbeast Dole and Dolgarion, his spaceship, and the Siberian, his motorcycle, I can buy all of that because it's early in the series and you're establishing everything. This is episode 29 of a 44 episode series. We should not be just now introducing pieces of his existing arsenal. It makes no bloody sense. And it frankly doesn't fit much of what he already has. It's a fine enough design. It doesn't look bad. The physical prop is pretty cool. It's still an action figure on a toy when you're seeing some of the effect shots, kind of like Dole, but it comes completely out of nowhere with zero explanation. And this is one of those places I can accept no explanation in these shows a lot of the time, but this is not one of them. Even a throwaway line like perhaps you should try the new vehicle that Commander Comb left, because Commander Comb shows up in the Dark Sea of Space to try to help to try to help save Mimi. So there were literally, could have been 30 seconds and out, but no. So there's that. That actually annoyed me out of these episodes. So these 5, couple of flashes of brilliance, otherwise standard episodes for Gavan, maybe a little less. And it felt like in these episodes they were really just trying to figure out what the show was for 5 episodes. And that is what it is. I'm hoping the next 5 are much better. Our next 5 episodes, next time around, we are going to be looking at episodes 30 through 34. So we're going to be checking out Don Horror's Son Has Returned, listening to the Angels song, The Mysterious Underground Maze, let's see here, A New Monster is Born, and Memories Are Tears of Stars. So that's the 5 episodes that we will be checking out next week here on the DenziBlitz. I want to remind you guys to, if you feel up to it, jump over to our Patreon page and become one of our patrons. We would greatly appreciate that. You guys can help support the ECS network, help us get new gear through our Cafe Press store, cafepress.com/ECS network. You guys already have. We have raised enough money to buy 1 set of lighting, so our goal on Patreon will be changing this week from $150 to $100 to get the remaining 2 lighting sets we need. The one that we're getting is more of a permanent setup, not really suited for travel that much, so it'll be set up here in the DenziCaster studios. But the remaining 2 we're getting for 8-Star Anime and for Chopsaki Cinema. So we still need your help. We would love to get that equipment. Also, let you guys know, the poll for what season era of Power Rangers we're going to pick our next show on the DenziBlitz has ended. And we are going to be, I'm going to double check to make sure I do not tell a lie. Let me jump over to our Patreon page right now myself. I believe it is the new Saban, the Saban Brands era, which means we're either looking at Samurai, Megaforce, or Dino Charge, and it includes both halves, which means we would be looking at Samurai, Super Samurai, Megaforce, Super Megaforce, and Dino Charge, Dino Supercharge, so it would fall like that. And as I check the poll as of the time of recording, yes, that's it exactly. So it's going to be one of those 3 shows. We want you guys to jump over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/DenziCaster, and we want you guys to choose the next show we watch. So will we be watching Power Rangers Samurai, Power Rangers Megaforce, or Power Rangers Dino Charge? You guys decide what I'm going to be watching next here on the DenziBlitz and talking about with you wonderful fellows and gals out there. But after that, it is Space Sheriff Scheider by popular demand. We've actually had a few people ask us to do another Space Sheriff show after seeing the stuff we've done for Gavan. You ask, and we shall deliver. So that is where we're going there. Until next time, folks, when we've got the next 5 episodes of Space Sheriff Gavan coming your way, I'm Mike, and we'll see you on the DenziBlitz.